So welcome back to another tutorial as brought to you by the Learn It channel. Please don't skip ahead. We're going to try and start all our tutorials in the year 2024 with a new tip or trick that can help you improve in your skills with Fusion 360. So let's get into it. Let's go to create a sketch. We'll just do it on our XY plane there. Now let's look up here to our line command. Have you ever wondered why it shows both a line and an arc? Well, if we look at the drop-down menu, it says creates lines and arcs. So here we have it. Let's just select that, go to our origin, and usually we click once, we click again, and we keep clicking, and this forms our individual lines. However, if we click once, and now just don't click and release, but click and hold, and now look what happens. It goes right into an arc. So this can be extraordinarily handy if we're making drawings quickly and we just need to go from a line to an arc. Well, it's as simple as that in Fusion 360. So now let's get on to our main tutorial. Thank you everyone for all of your support and your awesome comments and wanting to see the next tutorial in this series. So as we've learned in the last tutorial, we modeled and assembled the floor and we modeled and assembled the rear wall. But today we're going to, well, let's just take a look at our sample shed. This is the one that I've been learning on myself, is we're going to tackle the front wall, the side walls, and the roof. And just to give you a preview, you are not going to want to miss what we're going to do with the side walls in particular, and also the roof. Hopefully it will give you an idea that a well-modeled and well-assembled project means that you can edit and adjust things very easily. So if you haven't watched the previous tutorial, I encourage you to do so right now. You can see that there'll be a link on the top right side of the screen. And if you find that things go a little bit fast with this tutorial, well, I wholeheartedly recommend that you go back to the previous one, get the fundamentals of what's taught there, because this tutorial is going to be a little bit faster than the previous one, because we want to get this shed done before we create other tutorials on the bill of materials, rendering, and things like that. So let's go to our project. And again, we've got our floor visible and our rear wall visible. So we're going to turn those off and we're going to make our front wall active and expand that folder. So unlike the floor and the rear wall, we don't know every single component right now. And this is what kind of makes the front wall exciting to create, is because there's going to be some things that we design along the way. And you are also going to learn how to use the copy and paste new command in Fusion 360 rather than what we've been doing in the previous tutorial, which is copy and paste. So let's create our first component, and this is going to be our sole plate. And just like the previous tutorial taught, all of the pieces that we do know the sizes and dimensions of, we'll just create that right off the bat and go from there. So let's create ourselves a sketch. We can do it on this plane, X, Y. And we're going to go 3.5 inches is the width of our 2x4. And this one's going to be 39 inches long. There we go. And we're just going to quickly extrude this to 1.5 inches. So now let's build from the outside in. Let's create another component. This one's going to be our corner stud. So at this point we can, and because I have the dimensions, this is easy for me to do, but some of the dimensions we're going to pretend that we don't know. So this one, let's see, this is a total of 127.25, and it's going to be 1.5 inches wide. Perfect. So you can see sometimes we do the width of the 2x4, which is 3.5 inches. Sometimes we can do the depth here, 1.5 inch. But whatever way you want to do it, it's completely up to you. So let's bring this up 3.5 inches. Perfect. And let's just start assembling at this point. So remember, before we start assembling, activate your front wall. And we're just going to join this to that as we have learned in previous tutorials. So this to that. Oh, and we've made a mistake here. That's okay. If you ever don't select the right joint snap location, don't worry. Just exit out of the first one and we're going to pick the correct one now. There we go. It's easy. All right. So what's going to happen here is we look at the practice shed, and as you can see that there is a double header on the top here. So this next corner jack stud, as we'll call it, is 5.5 inches shorter than the other one. So let's go back there and we're going to create another one. And this one's going to be our corner jack stud. Great. And again, we'll just create it on that plane there and go real quick here. Go back to our main assembly and we're going to join this together. Okay, perfect. Now we'll create the jack stud for the inside here. Perfect. And our studs now. And remember, if something is plural, we'll just call it stud for now. And you'll see that it will name it as stud 1, stud 2, stud 3, and so on. So there we go. And let's just create this as well at 88 inches. Now you can see that we're getting into a groove here. Everything is going pretty fast. And remember, we can just single click, left click, drag our component off to the side. Let's do that. Okay, perfect. So we've got kind of the basis of the corner of our front wall here. Now we're just going to add a couple more studs that are going to be spaced in between. If we go to our sample project here, I can just look at the measurements and we're going to see this is 10.25. So let's look at that. Let's memorize that. 10.25 and 25.5. 10.25, 25.5. So let's just take our stud here. We're going to copy and paste. Let's just move that slightly off to the side and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to paste. Great. Now what we can do is join this and we can take that corner and this corner. Perfect. And this is going to be minus 10.5. I hope it was 10.5. What was it supposed to be here? There to there is 10.25, of course. Excellent. So let's just make sure there, 10.5, right? So if we want to just adjust it, go to our joint there and we can quickly just change it. Great. And the other one again is 25.5. Perfect. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so this is looking great. Let's go back to our shed here and we actually have another stud right there. So let's add that. I'm just going to click on this to see it in our browser, and there the angled lines underneath show that this is the component that's selected. We're going to copy and paste. Great, and let's do that. And here actually you can see I'm going to select the opposite corner and this one, make it a little bit easy for us. We can flip it. No, let's just rotate it now. There we go. Great, that's one other way. We don't always have to rotate or orbit our model to see everything so clearly. But this is great. So everything is lined up here. This is looking very good. So at this point, we can actually take all of our items here and we can right-click, copy, and paste. And now look at what we have. Because they're the exact same components, that's what we do. We copy and paste, and we can just flip this 180 degrees. There we have it. Now let's create two rigid groups. So we're going to select all the first ones here. Rigid group. Yes, we want to do that. Okay. And the second one, we're going to create a rigid group there. Perfect. And now as we move one component, they all move together. Now what's the spacing? Let's look at the spacing. Let's go from that corner to this corner and it's 66 inches. So let's do that. We can just joint this here and whatever, we can do the center points. It's all the same. Perfect. And let's move this over 66 and there we have it. Awesome. So now we've got almost the whole front wall complete. Now let's create our double header. This double header door. There we go. Now we can actually do this a couple different ways, but what I'll do is we'll actually specify dimensions. So if we measure from there to there, it is 69 inches. So let's create our sketch. Let's revert. It's all the same. It's all good. Now, so we're going to go, no, this one's going to be a 2x6, so 5.5 inches tall by 69 There we go. Great, and we're going to move that in 1.5 inches. So this is kind of fun here. You can see that as we get into understanding Fusion 360 a little bit more, we know exactly when to use copy and paste, copy, paste new, and so on and so forth. So let's do it here. I'm just going to mate those two together. Now what we can do is select this double header door, and we can copy and let's go paste new. So as you can see, as soon as I do that, it disappears on us. So we're going to reselect that, and now we can move it out of the way. And we're going to rename this double header door, and this is going to be a spacer. There's actually going to be a slice of plywood in between those. So this is the really cool thing. We're going to activate that, and look at what we have down in our timeline. We have two things. We've got the original sketch and we've got the extrude. So if we want to adjust something, we can go extrude, and we're going to call this 0.5. And because we went paste new, remember, paste new if we want to adjust a feature, and it will not affect the original component. So let's do that. We'll activate this again here. Let us join those together. Perfect. And at this point, our double header door, we can copy and paste. And would you look at that? Our double header is done. Done Zolens. Beautiful. Okay, so what else can we do? Well, we're going to have our horizontal boards laid down there too. But funny enough, what we're going to do is take this double header, and we're going to copy and paste new to our top double header there. Let's go back to our practice shed, and let's just make this look a little bit easier for us. There we go. A little bit easier to understand what's going on. So we've got these top plates, 1, 2, 3 top plates, and then we've got these other studs that are going across the front wall. So let's create those top plates, and there are 3 of them. They're exactly the same length, so let's do that. And again, we can just measure this, click one line, click the other, and it's 138 inches. So let's do that. We're going to create a new component, top plate. Perfect, and we're already in that component selection. So 138 inches is going to be 1.5 by 138. Bada bing, bada boom. There we go. Okay, so again, activate our main assembly, and now we can assemble. Okay, let's copy this one, and we're going to copy it 2 times. Let's just copy one at a time here. Let's go back to our sample shed, and we've got these, which I believe are called cripple studs. If I don't know what I'm talking about, please put it in the comments below. What are these studs here called? Anyways, the research that I showed calls them cripple studs, so let's just do that anyways. And these are actually the window frames, but let's create these. These are 29 1/4, and we're going to need a bunch of these. So we just move that front wall off position, so we can just revert position there. Let's move that off to the top, activate our main assembly, and start joining. So that doesn't work for us. We're going to redo that, and I selected the wrong point here. Let's pick that. Okay, and we're going to copy this again. So if you have missed anything, if we're going too fast, maybe you haven't watched the original tutorial, so I encourage you to watch that wholeheartedly. You will understand a ton more. Again, with this tutorial, I'm moving a little bit too fast. If the videos are too long in the eyes of the viewers, they won't be watched as much. So I'm trying to make these as efficient as possible so that you will like to watch them a little bit more. It's kind of scary if you always see an hour-long tutorial or whatever, but I'm trying to take these in parts, making it easier for everyone to benefit. So there we go. We've got the other top plate up. Now this is the thing. Let's take our double header door. We'll take all 3 of these. We're going to copy, and remember, they're almost exactly the same. The only thing that differs is the length. So this is when we copy and paste new. And again, they kind of disappear on us there. Let's select all three of those. We can move them up into space. Now, let's just rename these right as early as we can. Double header, let's just do that. We're going to call it double header there. And this is going to be our double header spacer. We can get rid of that. Perfect. Okay, so that just goes back to, all right, in this case, I'm going to delete this one. So let's go to delete. And yes, we've got things based off of that. It's fine. Warning position, no worries. Everything's all right. So these are still together. Wonderful. So now, if we want to adjust the length of this, don't use the pull press. We could if we want. But again, if we have designed things properly, let's activate the component. And in our sketch, well, we can just resize it. Very simple. And what's the size? Well, let's just click on our line there, 141 inches. Double click our dimension, 141, finish the sketch. Awesome. And our door spacer. And again, actually at this point, let's delete it. Let me just show you something first. Let's activate our component there. And as we go delete, yes, we can, that's fine. A few things in our timeline will disappear. If we go remove, it won't affect anything in the previous, what we've previously done in our timeline, but it will show another little icon, a little symbol in our timeline here, which just complicates things. So I should have just copied and pasted new this double header here, but it's all the same. Remember, when you're flying, when you're going really fast with modeling, sometimes you forget the optimal way of doing something. But what's another 10 seconds sometimes, rather than trying to always understand the perfect way of doing it. Don't worry about that too much. Just move on. Just keep on going as fast as you can. And there we go. So double header, and we're going to call this spacer. Perfect. And again, double header spacer, we are going to activate, change the thickness of it to 0.5. Awesome. We're going to activate our entire assembly before we start joining. And we are going to start mating everything together there. All right. So here we're going to copy and paste. And now we can join this together. All right, so we've got our top double header. We've got our door double header. But now we want to just create our window frames, so we can do that as well. Let's just create that. We're going to call our first component our window header. And this is actually going to be our window sole plate, or the bottom plate, and the head plate. So let's do that. And these guys are 37 3/4 inch long. So we're going to call that 37.75. Okay, 3.5 inches there. And again, we're selecting the wrong one, so we can first of all click on it in the browser and go from there. Okay, so now let's join this. And again, if we don't have to always orbit things and go to the right joining locations, this should flip into position. There we go. We want that right in the middle. And we can do the same thing if we copy and paste. And do the same thing on the top. Okay, now we want these cripple studs here. And we may as well we can even do this here. And again, we can use the shortcuts, Control-C, Control-V on a Windows computer, and Command on a Mac. That's it. Okay, so we've got our first window frame in, and now I can just select those four, and we are going to copy and paste it. Let's move this over, and we're just going to move it over 43 inches. That is what it's supposed to be. Of course, we can join these anytime we want, but let's just move them over 43 inches. There we go. And we'll call this one 43 as well. Perfect. And let's just see the spacing between this stud and the outer, 8.75 here and there. Oh, 8.625. So it's actually 1/8 of an inch off. All right, so what we can do is we'd like to place these window frames exactly above this stud. And again, it's 1/8 of an inch off, but this we can do so easily if we know what we're doing. Let's select all 4 of these components. There they are. And we are going to make a rigid group. Okay, and we'll do the same thing over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and there they are in our browser. We're going to create a rigid group there as well. And now we can actually just move those off to the side, which is really cool. And let's put these, well, we can just do that to that 8.75. Perfect. Join it. And actually what's going to be a little bit easier if we go from this side to this side. There we go. 4 1/4. Let's just do that instead. Make our life a little bit easier. Oh boy. 4 1/4. There we go. And because they're a rigid group, they're going to stay together. So 4 1/4 there. Oh, not 40. Awesome. Okay, we can revert position, get that back into place. Great. And do the same thing over here. All right, so our whole front wall is now done, which is great. And we can just go to right-click physical material. We are going to drop our pine in for everything. Oh, let's just apply that to the whole. We can remove. There we go. Now we could actually add plywood to the middle of our double headers here, but let's save some time. We don't need to do that. It's going to be pretty close to the actual or to the same material as pine. So now let's make our floor and our rear wall visible. And again, we can start mating everything together here. And I'm going to join the bottom right to our plywood. And again, only our sole plate moves, but once we hit OK, everything moves into place there. And let's hide our joints. Let's go to our front wall here and let's just do that and hide everything. Now we've got all these other joints right here. Yeah, let's do that. And we should be able to go hide. Yep. So right click to hide if we want to select a bunch at the same time. Okay, there we go. So at this point, this is where things get really interesting. So far, we have known all of the sizes and shapes of all of our components. But now with the sidewalls, we don't. And this is where Fusion excels and where I love it. And we're actually going to make a mistake on purpose so that you can see when we model things the correct way, when we assemble things the correct way. It's so easy to fix something. And our processing speed is super fast. We're going to have to worry about our model breaking. And speaking about our model breaking, let's save this before it crashes on us. All right, so let's go to our right wall first of all. And this is going to be our right wall looking at our shed. Now, of course, if this is actually left wall, like we're looking at how they classify stage names, well, then that would be the left wall. But let's just call this the right wall, whatever, it's all the same. Okay, we're going to activate our right wall, create a sketch. And remember, we're going to create a sketch on our original origin. And that's because if we change some things with our design, sometimes that's where we get into big problems with Fusion crashing. Because if we change something with our back wall or our front wall and everything's based on those, well, then that's where it crashes. However, our origin, well, that doesn't move. That is stationary. That always stays the same. So it makes it, Fusion knows exactly where things are and it crashes a lot less frequently. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to project all of these different features. We're going to project our plywood. Let's just do the top section of our plywood there. And now what we can also do is let's project these features. And I believe that will go all the way up. Yep, there we go. I believe so. Actually, let's just do this the right way. Okay, so we're going to pick that, just the side. We can pick the other side too. That will come in hand. Our plywood, okay. We're going to project this. We're going to project that as well, this, and we're actually going to have to do these up here too. Okay, so everything has been projected and we can actually hide our floor and our rear and front walls. And there we have it. Well, let's go to our front wall one more time and we can press P for project, and let's project this over as well. There, okay. So everything is projected now. Here we have in our design a lot of pieces that we don't know their exact values. We don't know what to cut the angle at, and that's okay. We're going to do that all with our drawing. But what we're going to do here, instead of creating individual components, we're going to create a master sketch and then build all of our components from that sketch. So again, we're going to make a mistake here, and that's okay. This is all part of learning. But let's assume that we're going to create our top plate over here. Now, I don't want it to snap to any of these points, so I'm just going to put my line down on a complete different angle. Let's make these parallel now, and we can create its width. And this is going to be 1.5. Great, so this is going to be one 2x4 running down that length right there. Next, let's create our sole plate. And here we can actually just span it from that to there. We don't even have to specify a dimension because, well, it calculates it for us. Now what we can also do is we are going to create our studs. So let's do our first one here and create a dimension for it. And of course, this is going to be 1.5 inches. Now next, all of our studs are going to be 12 inches on center, or at least as close as we can to it. So let's create another dimension from there to there. Again, we don't always have to type in 1.5 inches here. We can just select that previous dimension and it will input it for us. So 12 inches on center, let's just press D and we're going to select the outside of our shed to that and call it 12 inches. And I'm actually going to put this on the bottom right there so it's a little bit easier for us to read later on. So I'm just going to lather, rinse, and repeat this process all the way down the side wall of our shed. So you can see because I've actually selected this top plate over here with our vertical lines or our studs, you can see as I move over the dimension here to our 12 inches on center, it creates those lines joined together, those points joined together. That's great. So here's the only thing I'm going to change, and this is what we can see in Fusion, is if we are to put our piece of plywood on the side here, well, we don't want it flush with this side right there. So we're just going to change this to 11 and, well, we can go to 12 minus 1.5 divided by 2, and that will put it right on center. There we go. And we'll just keep on carrying on here. Okay, so you can see at this point, everything is fully constrained. And we're going to finish our sketch there. And now what we can do is, under our right wall, remember our sketches is in its own folder, which holds our master sketch. And now what we can do is, let's extrude. And we're going to select this profile and make sure to create a new component. We can go either way because we have created our sketch on our YZ plane, so it doesn't really matter, but I'll just go this direction just to keep things uniform. And then our sketch disappears. We'll bring our sketch back up. And here again, we've got our part. Let's just rename it now so we keep our sanity. And I'm just going to call this right wall. There we go, top plate, right wall. Let's do the same thing down here. New component. And again, we can call this our sole plate, right wall. And we're going to repeat this for all of our different components. And just like that, our wall is pretty well done. Oh no. And look at what I've gone and done here. What have we done? Why do we have all of these? Oh no, did I forget? I kept it as new body, rats. Okay, so now we've got to go all the way back in reverse here. Okay. And what did we do there? Is this a, yeah, that's a stud. Okay, so rats. I forgot to select new component down here, and that's what happens. That's okay. It's just a few seconds. Okay, and just to make sure that all these are components, we're just going to select one at a time and press the down arrow and go through each of them, and there we have it. So we can rename all of these. I'll do that really quickly. So now that we have created all of these components, we actually have to put a nailer off to the side here. Let's just show you what that looks like. Here's a nailer, and it is going to be sunken into our studs just the depth of our 2x4. So the benefit of creating all of our components, first of all, is what we can do is go back to our sketch now. Our sketch is activated, and let's hide all of these. So we're just going to right click and V to hide all of them. So now we've got our sketch again. We're going to go back to our sketch and let's create our nailer. And the nailer is going to be flush with the top over here. So let's just create that. We're going to go on and make sure that it is horizontal. And this guy too, let's just do that. And we're going to make sure that this is the width of our 2x4. And now we're going to use a horizontal vertical constraint. We're going to pick the endpoint and there, and it will constrain everything together. Let's go finish sketch. Now we are going to make all of these visible one more time. There we go. And now we've got this new feature right here that we can extrude into our part. So let's do that. Let's create another component, and this one's going to be our nailer. And now we can just simply, actually, before we do that, we can, before we create the nailer, let's go back to extrude. And I wonder why it's selecting that particular section there. Okay, is it not closed off? Let's go back to our sketch and why? Oh, there we go. So it's not actually joined. So let's create a coincident constraint from there to there. And now, there we go. So all of this should be able to be selected. Perfect. Okay, so let's extrude these first of all. And we're going to cut it -1.5. And this is going to cut. There we have it. Awesome. And now what we can do is let's go extrude. And this is going to be a new component. And this is going to be back there at 1.5 inches. Awesome. And now we've got our nailer. And let's just make sure the body, there's only one body there. Perfect. We can hide our sketch. And look at that. Our nailer is finished. Our whole wall is finished. So that's great. So let's just apply our pine material here. Great. Okay. And we are going to make sure that this is a rigid group. Perfect. Let's turn on our floor, rear wall, front wall. Move that off to the side. And we're going to activate our master assembly. And now let's join it here. Okay, beautiful. So now this is looking really, really, really cool. All right, so now what we want to do is, this is where we use the mirror function, because a mirror will actually create new components, and this is what we want. It's not the exact same components. They're the mirror image, which is not the exact, it's a mirror image. So here we go. We're going to go to mirror, and we're just going to select our right wall. And actually, let's see here. Why is it? Oh, let's go components. There we go. So make sure to select object type components, and our mirror plane is going to be right there. And here we go. We're going to press OK. Now we've got all sorts of different positioning errors over here. Now, why is that the case? Let's undo that. What do we have here? Why are these like that? Okay. So let's go back in time. So let's go review warning, compute failed position. Okay, that's all right. So we've got a position warning here. That did not show up in the original. I wonder why. I'll tell you why. Yeah, look at that. Okay, well, can we go back in time and see where this issue is? Okay, well, now I've just deleted them, and Sometimes we can get away with that, sometimes we can't. So let's just do that. For some reason, those position commands were in there, and this is just a captured position. And so those don't really matter. All right, let's just do that. And now we can join this one more time. Let's see what happens here. Great. So that's why I don't use those positioning commands very often where I want it to capture things. We don't need them. Okay, let's see here. Does this bring us a warning? No, it doesn't. Great. So it was just a temporary warning there. Let's do the same thing. We are going to mirror. We're going to mirror our right wall. Let's mirror plane here. Okay, and did it work? Did it work? Hey, it worked. Awesome. So look at here, right wall mirror. We can rename this and it won't have a bearing or an effect on the right wall there. So we're going to call this our left wall, and we don't even need to call it mirror at this point because it's its own components or set of components. So there we go. Awesome. So look at our timeline is extraordinarily long. But if we ever want to just adjust one item, well, we can just open up that item. We can go to it. We can see in our timeline, it only has 2 commands in our timeline, which is just brilliant. I love it how easy it is when we have arranged things well. So here we have our joint that I want to hide. At this point, before we go to the roof, which is so easy to do, it will be the final step of our tutorial. If you have benefited at all, if you've enjoyed this series so far, please, please, please hit that like button. Please consider sharing this with someone that you think might benefit from these tutorials. If you love our content, please consider being a YouTube member or a Patreon member, or consider even buying us a coffee. We would absolutely love it. We thank you so much. On the screen, you can see our current YouTube and Patreon members. Those who have supported this channel, thank you so much for your generosity and kindness. So now let's go to our last feature of this tutorial, our roof. We're going to activate that. We're going to make it visible. And here again, we're going to create a sketch on our YZ plane. And we are going to project. So let's do that here. 1, 2, we'll do that over there too. We'll just project the features that will be the basis of our rafters. And we can hide everything now other than the, what is this here? Left wall. Let's do that. Okay. So now let's sketch our rafter. So this is great here. This is going to go up, and this is where we'll note the error that we created before. And I'm just going to draw the basic shape here. Awesome. Let's use the trim tool to get rid of that. Okay. Now let's add some dimensions here. That's going to be 2.5, 4 1/8. Great. We can also add a dimension here. This is going to be a 2x6, so it's going to be 5.5 inches there. And this is also going to be 4 1/8. So if you're wondering why this is 4 1/8, well, there's going to be fascia. There's going to be the plywood walls that are going to finish this off. They're going to slide in between there as well. But this is what our rafter looks like, which is so nice to create a pattern and a stencil or whatever we need. It shows all of our dimensions later on, and we can put that in our drawings as well. But this is where the mistake is that's made. And as you can see, if we were to create a skeleton outline of this part, well, actually, it should look more like, and I wish I could draw it on the screen. Well, I'll draw it right here. But it should actually be the bottom of the rafter is right there. Otherwise, we're going to have to use probably a 7 or 8 inch. Well, it would have to be 2 by 8 in order to do that. So this actually needs to drop down 1.5 inches. And this is where the mistake is. So again, that's okay. Let's just finish our sketch and we can go back to our right wall. And let's go to our original sketch in that right wall as well. And so this is the problem right here, is this point actually needs to be dropped 1.5 inches down. I accidentally made it flush with the top. So here we have this amazing thing. We have drafted everything. We have sketched it all. Imagine if we didn't do this right, we'd have to start again from scratch. However, let's just click on that point and you can see that we've got 2 constraints. Which one is it? Well, there's actually 2 endpoints. We don't know which one it is, so let's just delete the first one. And now let's move this point. This is our projected endpoint, so we don't want that. Let's go Command Z to undo. Let's single click that point. Let's just escape, single click. We're gonna have to undo again. There we go. Okay, pick that point, pick the other constraint. Let's delete it. And now let's drag this down and look at that. So it still retains everything else, but we just have to add a dimension. From there to there is gonna be 1.5. Let's finish our sketch, and now look at it, updates everything. It updates that entire sidewall. Let's go back to our roof. We'll activate it, go to our sketch, and you can see what I mean. Let me just draw a brief skeleton outline here, and we'll need to add a line from there to completely enclose our part. So here I'm going to create a construction line. Press X for construction line. Let's go off to the side there. We're going to go on 90 degrees there. Perfect. Let's make these collinear. Let's turn this into a coincident constraint. No, let's do that. Okay. Let us, it should join there. Okay, well, if it's not letting me, oh, that's why, because it would make that line not exist. So let's do that, and we can just make those coincident as well. Perfect. So that's the end of our board there, and we can do the same thing on this side. We'll make these collinear. There we go. We'll make this coincident to that. So now we can actually measure the entire length of our board if we select that endpoint and this endpoint. Then we're looking at 113 plus inches, but everything should be within this. There'll be a little bit of a corner knocked off right there, but that's okay. That's not a big deal. And we can see over here that everything should fit in that envelope that we've created. So awesome. Our roof sketch is done. And now what we can do is let's go to create, or we can extrude that. We'll go off to the side. Again, we can go any direction that we want. Let's create a new component though. And this is going to be 1.5 inches. Awesome. Now let's activate our entire assembly. And Fusion is starting to have fun with me, so I'm going to definitely save it. Perfect. Let's just move this off to the side. And now we can actually, why is that sketch coming up? Oh, it's right there. Again, if we're trying to find a specific sketch, let me show you here. We can just click on it. It will show the root directory of that sketch. And there we have it. We can just hide it. Okay, so now let's join this. Let's open up our front wall. Okay, and we can just simply join this to that. Perfect. Okie dokie, and we can go back to, this is our rafter. Let's just rename it right now, rafter. And we can pattern it now. So make sure our roof is activated. We don't want our components to be put in our main assembly or master assembly. We want them all to be under roof. So now we can go to rectangular pattern, components, select that, select our axis. Again, I'd like to pick our origin axis, which never moves. This is going to be minus 144 plus 1.5 inches. And how many do we want? Well, these are going to be 12 inches on center as well, which means we'll need 13 of them. There we have it. And now our rafters are all labeled 1 through 13. Let's create our physical material as pine. And would you look at this? Our entire shed is framed and ready to go. So remember, at this point, what I'd like to do is create a rigid group, and I'm just going to encapsulate everything here. And so hold on a second. Let's just go cancel, and we're going to pick everything, and we'll create a rigid group. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So now everything is built together. Everything is joined together. And actually, I don't think I could have done that with the rest of the joints, but now everything is locked in together with our last item in our timeline. So on to the next part of it. If you would like to see this completely finished, if you'd like to see the walls put on, plywood walls, if you'd like to see the fascia, if you'd like to see the soffit, if you'd like to see doors go on, please like and comment below. Mention how much you've liked these tutorials. Have they benefited you in any way? If you have created a shed and would like to see it showcased on our Facebook page, please send your file or your drawings or whatever you'd like to contact@learnitalready.com, and we would love to post it and showcase your work. So thanks again for tuning in. Can't wait to see you in the next tutorial, and please keep learning with the Learn It channel.